kick us off.
Thanks, Jen. A new book reports that near the end of the Trump presidency, Chairman Milley had 2 conversations with his Chinese counterpart, promising the countries would not go to war and that he would give an early warning if something were to happen. In a statement just minutes ago, Chairman Milley did not dispute this account. On this, does the president feel that these calls were appropriate? Does he have confidence in the chairman? And some Republican senators have called for Chairman Milley to be dismissed. Is he going to keep his job?
Well, I saw the statement, of course, that the Department of Defense, or I should say the Joint Chiefs spokesperson, just released minutes ago. I'm not going to add more, speak to anonymous, unconfirmed reports about conversations with limited context from here. But what I can assure you all of is that the President knows General Milley. He has been chairman of the Joint Chiefs for almost 8 months of his presidency. They've worked side by side through a range of international events. And the president has complete confidence in his leadership, his patriotism, and his fidelity to our Constitution. Since you gave me the opportunity, I just wanted to add, I think it's important to consider some of the context, key context of this period in time in history that we're discussing and is outlined or covered in portions of this book. The outgoing president of the United States during this period of time fomented unrest, leading to an insurrection and an attack on our nation's capital on January 6th, which you all have covered extensively, of course. One of the darkest days in our nation's history. Beyond reports in this book, there's been widespread reporting and commentary from members of his own cabinet, the former president's cabinet, I should say, including high-ranking national security officials, questioning the former president's stability, his behavior, and his suitability to oversee the national security of the United States. So those are important questions that need to be discussed as well.
I want to follow up to this. Does the president believe that General Milley should testify before Congress about his actions during that time?
Look, I think the president has been clear with his administration and members of his cabinet and national security team that we will continue to work with Congress and cooperate with them as appropriate in meeting their needs. We've done that from the beginning of the administration. I would defer to the Department of Defense and the Joint Chiefs for further decisions.
I'll hand off. You can just give a comment.
Following up on Jonathan's questions here, does the president have any concerns that General Milley perhaps worked outside of the chain of command at all in this?
Again, I think why it was important for me to convey what I did is that the president has worked side by side with Chairman Milley for almost 8 months as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. His experience with him has been that he is a patriot. He is somebody who has fidelity to the Constitution, and he has confidence in his leadership and the role he has played in his experience with him. I can't speak to anonymous, unconfirmed reports about prior conversations during the last administration.
Last one on this. Former President Trump called these actions insubordinate and treasonous. Do you want us to respond directly to that? And then one more off topic.
I don't think I have any further response to the former president, other than to reiterate the context of this moment in time, what everybody's talking about here and what we're reporting on.
Just quickly on COVID, Dr. Fauci.
Minor point on it because you brought up the context a couple of times. Does President Biden believe that General Milley may have been acting in the national interest by circumventing a former president who he feared was acting erratically?
Well, it's the obligation of every chairman of the Joint Chiefs to follow constitutional orders to prevent unlawful military action. That's what the president believes. But it's also important to understand the context of when this reporting was happening during, and the fact that the former president was fomenting an insurrection, and there was broad concern from a range of members of his national security team about his behavior and fitness for office. And I know you all know and have reported on that context, but that is missing a little bit as people are discussing this.
So you think General Milley may have been acting patriotically by having these conversations with
Again,
China?
I'm not going to give further analysis other than to say that the president believes he's patriotic, that his fidelity to our Constitution is unquestionable, and he has complete confidence in him.
Has President Biden had a fuller conversation with General Milley about all this since the book's details were publicized yesterday?
I don't have any other further conversations to read out. Go ahead.
Even if the president believes that the intentions and the patriotism of General Milley were in line with his own values, is there a point where criticism makes General Milley unable to continue in this role because it is a new administration, it's a new day, and there are some questions about if he exceeded his authority?
Well, again, the president has complete confidence in his leadership, his patriotism, and his fidelity to our Constitution. I can't speak to the former president's experience with him or the former president's views of him. But this current president, who follows the Constitution, who's not fomenting an insurrection, who follows the rule of law, has complete confidence in Chairman Milley and him continuing to serve in his role.
And even as Republicans may criticize him and have questions about his suitability to continue, would that be a factor that President Biden would consider, separate from his judgment about how he conducted himself before?
I don't think the president is looking for the guidance of members of Congress who stood by while the president of the United States and the leader of their party fomented an insurrection, and many of them were silent.
Its response to this criticism that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs exceeded his authority, usurped civilian authority, and does there exist any fear that that could happen to any administration, including this administration?
Well, again, this is why I provided the context, right? Because what we're talking about here, one, let me just restate again, that there are a range of reports in this book, anonymous, unconfirmed. I realize that the Department of Defense, or I should say the Joint Staff spokesperson, put out a statement. If you look at that statement, that is really about what the normal channels of communication are, which are important to understand as well. Broadly speaking, beyond this book, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, any chairman of the Joint Chiefs, has channels to communicate with China and Russia. Those are meant to increase confidence. Those are meant to prevent and deter any action that would be unintended, and that is a good thing because obviously we want to prevent nuclear war. So what I can speak to, though, is the president's view of Chairman Milley, and obviously Chairman Milley has been by his side for almost 8 months. The president's experience with him is that he is a man of honor. He is a man who's the president's confident in his leadership, his patriotism, his fidelity to the Constitution. I can't speak to, and I'm not going to speak to, anonymous, unconfirmed, out of context reports from the last administration. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just to follow up on these questions about General Milley.
Yeah.
How much agency does the president believe that those in the chain of command should have when it comes to assessing whether an order is constitutional? What if someone who's serving this president feels that there's an order or a policy that he views as contravening the Constitution? How much agency does this president give to those beneath him in the line of chain of command?
Well, beyond this president, any president, it's the obligation of every chairman of the Joint Chiefs to follow constitutional orders to prevent unlawful military action. This president has no intention of fomenting unrest or an insurrection. He has no intention of obviously moving forward or recommending unlawful military action. He has no intention of working in a way that is outside of what his national security team, what his military commanders are aligned with him on. I mean, obviously they're going to give him a range of recommendations, but he has no intention of working outside of what is legally allowable. So I don't think that's going to be an issue for this president.
You said you don't want to respond to unconfirmed out-of-context reporting, but you've also given a really ringing endorsement to General Milley. So I guess my question is it fair to say that the president feels he knows enough about what General Milley did or didn't do at the end of the last administration, or does he want to know more?
He knows General Milley, and he's worked beside him for the last nearly 8 months, and that's what gives the president confidence in him.
This is finished as far as he's concerned. In other words, there's nothing more to investigate.
Well, we'll leave it to Congress and others to ask questions they want to ask, and obviously the Department of Defense, the Joint Chiefs, and others will speak to that. But I'm just speaking to where the president stands. Go ahead.
Jen,